Yeshua ben Parachia says, make a teacher for yourself, acquire a friend for yourself, and judge everyone favorably. עשה לך רב וקנה לך חבר, והווה דן את כל האדם לכף זכות. This, in my opinion, is one of the most critical mishnayot relevant to our generation today. Not that I know the entire Torah to even know that what's the most important one. There's no one more important than the other, but it's more important in regards to the subject matter that I mentioned earlier about this confusion that we have on a regular basis of not knowing how to behave, not knowing what to do, not knowing who to follow. And you see that the massive amount of confusion usually has one answer. Because you see that there's always been different sects within Judaism, and unless you're talking about Mount Sinai, everyone was the same. There's no Sephardic, there's no Ashkenazi, there's no Yemenite. Everyone was the same. But throughout times, Am Yisrael was spread into the four corners of the world. Some people to Australia, some people to Yemen, some people to Europe, and some people to America, and so on. So you develop different cultures, but the Torah itself stayed the same. The fact that there's different customs amongst different cultures, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But the halakha itself, the rules, stayed the same. But if you've noticed, in the last generation, the customs have gone out of control. In the last generation, the customs have become superior to halakha. The customs have become superior to the actual law we got from Mount Sinai. And that cannot be. That is against the Torah. And the answer to why is what we're going to talk about today. If you notice, there's, just to mention a few horrific sects within groups. This is not to identify any one group that's worse than the other or better than the other. This is to identify the ugliness within each, because we're all in the same boat. If one guy is sinning, I'm also in trouble for it. If you're sinning, I'm also in trouble for it. If I'm sinning, you're in trouble for it. We're all in the same boat. So it doesn't matter if it's Chabad, or it's Breslev, or it's this one, or it's that one, it makes no difference. But the point is that we all need to look in the mirror once in a while and see that there's a problem. You see that there was an extraordinary rabbi, the Satmar Rabbi. The Satmar Rebbe was a huge Talmid Chacham, a big tzaddik, and had his certain beliefs that we weren't allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael. Whether he's right, he's wrong, it's irrelevant. What he didn't intend on doing is having his students evolve into the mutants that the Neturei Karta have become. The Satmar in general, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. But out of the Satmar came this other organization called Neturei Karta Yimach Shimam. Why am I saying Yimach Shimam? Why am I cursing them like you curse J.C. Penney? Why am I cursing them like you curse terrorists? Because they've become part of the terrorists. They've become a walking Chilul Hashem, where they wear their Jewish uniform, but what are they doing during this proceeding? They shake hands with the Iranians that are telling us they want to annihilate all the Jews in the world. They're getting money from terrorists. But it looks holy, because to the world, who doesn't know anything, the difference between a Jew that's religious and a Jew that's not religious, everybody's Jewish, it looks good. Oh, look, these are nice Jews. Look, they're getting along with the Arabs. Why can't everybody get along with the Arabs? So obviously the Satmar Rebbe, who was a huge Talmid Chacham, did not intend for this to happen. I'm sure he's much, much more bitter about it than what I'm saying today here. It's no different with the Chabadnikim today that have turned their holy rabbi, Rabbi Melvavitch, into a Mashiach. This is complete nonsense. It's against the Torah. He died. He's a big tzaddik. Maybe he was a potential Mashiach when he was alive, but once he died, he died. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rebbe, the original Rebbe, the one that's mentioned in the Mishnah, the one that all of the sages in the Torah, the ones that gave us our Torah, said that if somebody could be the Mashiach in our generation, it's Rebbe. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, while he was the perfect human being, huge tzaddik, accepted all of the isurim, all of the sacrifices and suffering with love. Years and years of suffering with love. All the fortune that he had, he didn't enjoy one penny of it. He knew the entire Torah by heart. He put together our Mishnah. The only reason we have Torah is because of him. And they say, listen, as soon as he died, that's it. He couldn't be the Mashiach anymore. So if Rebbe from 2,500 years ago couldn't be the Mashiach because he died, so obviously Rebbe from Lubavitch can't be the Mashiach. He died. Big tzaddik. But the problem is that his students are not listening to his teachings. They're listening to his teachings because he never said, I'm the Mashiach. If he was the Mashiach, he would say, listen guys, by the way, Geulah is here, I'm the Mashiach. Wait for me, I'll be back in a few years. I'm the Mashiach. He wouldn't leave it in hiding because according to the Torah, if you look at the prophecy in the book of Jeremiah, you look at the prophecy in the book of Zechariah, you look at the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, you look at the prophets, the ones that gave us the word of Hashem, they said that the Mashiach is going to be obvious. It's not going to be some mysterious thing. Oh, is he Mashiach? Is he not Mashiach? Is he black? Is he white? Is he Yemenite? Maybe he likes us, maybe not. There's no mystery. When Mashiach is here, the whole world's going to know. Just like Hashem made sure that everyone knows that Mount Sinai is happening, just like Hashem made sure that the sea that split, everyone knew. Even Rachav, which eventually became the wife of Joshua, Yeshua ben Nun, one of the greatest prophets that ever lived, the one that followed Moshe Rabbeinu, she said, we heard about your God. What do you mean you heard? How'd you hear? You were over here, we're in Mount Sinai. Well, you have TV, you have radio, what do you have? We saw what Hashem did in the sky. Hashem made a projection for everyone to see what happened. So if to give us the Torah, he made sure that everyone knew the culmination of the world is going to be bigger. He's not going to do it in secret. You're not going to guess if he's the Mashiach, he's not the Mashiach. But the students are not listening to the rabbi. And what happens when you don't listen to him? You get even worse. And this week I got news that there's another stem of, call themselves Chabad, that are calling themselves Elokistim. Elokistim means they've turned the Rebbe into God. Where they said that once he left this world, he became one with God, Shem Rachem, became one with God, and now he's running the world. And now you no longer need to do mitzvot. And on this video, this is not like a rumor. This is an actual article. There's a video of these people saying this, and you see them bowing to the picture of the Rebbe, eating pork, talking about how initially when she first started eating on Yom Kippur, she was initially scared, but then she started reading and she was fine. So now she eats pork on Yom Kippur, no Shabbat, no Tefillin, no Tarat Mishpacha, no modesty. You don't have to do mitzvot anymore. Why? Because the Rebbe became God. Desecrating the holy Rebbe, and they followed so hard, so closely, with their stupidity. Pure stupidity. And unfortunately you have...
Can I ask you a question?
You let me finish the point, then you can ask. Or go ahead, if you point out, go ahead, if it's the same issue.
You're speaking about some things, which I'm not really sure why you're speaking about them, but do you know any of the people in that video that you saw?
Do I know them?
Yeah.
What do you mean, do I know them? Do I know them personally?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so I do.
Okay.
And you should know it's unbecoming of you even to talk about them because they're mentally ill people. They're not.
Yeah, but this is just part of a group. This is not necessarily the 5 people.
You obviously, that's my next question. How many of the Rebbe students do you even know personally? Do you know anyone?
I know a few, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone in the category that you have described today?
Meaning what? Meaning that they believe he's the Mashiach? Yes.
You're talking about things that
offend you.
It's unbecoming of you in a platform of Torah to talk about because you're talking about people that have worse problems than the problems you're describing. And you're labeling a certain group in a way that is completely inappropriate it seems that you don't know any of the people here, or maybe you don't know what you're talking about, because the groups that you're describing are not who you're describing. I don't
Right,
know.
but see, the thing is, the difference is what you have to understand is that in order to know what someone's talking about what somebody's talking about, you first have to hear what they're talking about. Now, to assume you know my point before I completed it is a failed assumption. You've already failed before you started. To assume you know my point before I've completed what I'm trying to tell you, you're just you're talking out of context.
I'm happy to wait, but I'm not addressing your point. I mean, it's irrelevant your point right now. You're talking about things that
are real. They're happening. You're telling me that no one in Chabad is actually saying the Rebbe is Mashiach?
It's not.
They're not walking. They're not driving around with a car and big post billboard saying Rebbe is the Mashiach.
100% the whole Chabad movement.
I'm not saying, but this is exactly what I said. Obviously, you're missing the point. I'm not saying this is Chabad. I said this is cults within Chabad, and I said it in the beginning of the lecture. So, if you let me complete my point, then you would see that there is a sect within Chabad, and then there's Chabad. There's the founders of Chabad, and who they were, as I described their Rebbe, he's a big tzaddik, no questions asked. I wish I could be his shoe. But the students, or the ones that call themselves the students, are not all following what he said. Because what he said was in accordance with the Torah. What some of them are doing is against the Torah. Obviously, they can't be in the same book. So, the fact that it's offensive, the fact that it's disturbing, is the point. Because it's happening, and no one's talking about it. That's why I'm talking about it. Because this is one of the huge things that is causing confusion for people from all walks of life, whether they're coming from a secular lifestyle, and they're looking at these people and they're saying there's something wrong with them, or it's people coming from a different religion called Christianity and they're saying, wait, they're not doing anything different than us. Or it's coming from people that...
Do you think that's what's confusing people who are being introduced to Judaism and seeing some of these things? Or is it the people that come to a Torah class to hear something of substantial, and the teachers getting carried away with things that are absolutely irrelevant to anything else?
It's not relevant to maybe something you wanted to... Yes, I'm teaching should be carried away.
I'm a simple person. I came to learn.
This is the way I teach. You do not have to listen to me.
Correct.
This is what I teach.
If I may say
This is how I teach.
If I may say something,
Yeah.
I'm not from birth, but I know from my own experience, when you start looking for something, for the truth, it can be it's very confusing. Because you hear and you see these people and you see those people. These people, there's a lot of streams and a plethora of choices that you have to make, and you have to find the truth. And I agree with this. People that are not representing the truth and they diffuse. Mm-hmm. And that's very unfortunate. So that's basically the point.
With all due respect to everyone that's listening, whether here or online or anywhere else, again, the point...
They're not true, and one is true. How are you supposed to look for the truth? How are you supposed to find the truth?
The point I'm trying to make is...
If you have a good teacher, if you have 9 that are not, they all 10 say, I'm a good teacher.
That's true.
Everybody says, I found the emet here.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge all over.
Now you're lost. You can't find
He's not
the
addressing
truth.
your question. You have a very good question. Finding a teacher, like finding a doctor or someone...
But they're all claiming to be a great teacher.
But that's not the point that he's addressing.
This is the point that we're getting.
Eventually I may get to that point. I don't know, who knows if I actually start talking at some point.
I know we're going to get to this point.
You're starting at a premise that's not...
That's disturbing to you.
It's not healthy. And
It's not healthy for who?
Even for you.
Why is it not healthy for me?
Even for you. Because if you're trying to make a point from a group of ill people, that is not showing that you have a mind to represent, to understand how to expound your point properly.
I may not teach in your style.
Start at a point, to bring at a point from a minority, that's not even a minority, that's people that are not well. If you want to bring at a well intellectual point, you bring it up from intellectual.
Would you like to give the class?
You're not giving the class, you're bringing negativity into a holy place.
Maybe
And it's very sad to see someone that became from someone that was negative and became from and is bringing negativity here. It's very uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to hear, but it's reality.
Let me finish.
It's not about the point. It's about when someone...
Isn't it interesting that we're learning Musar and how to behave, but yet they won't let the speaker speak?
Let's listen. Let's try and...
You don't have to listen. Again, this is not jail. Everyone is welcome to sit, they're welcome to listen, they're welcome to learn, they're welcome to criticize, but you still have to let me do my job. So I'm here for free.
Your job is not bringing negativity into this whole base medrash. That's not your job.
I'm trying to bring enlightenment.
This is not light at all.
You
feel Torah. I've spent to hundreds of shur and feel beauty of Torah.
Right.
This is not light.
Let's continue, please. For you it may not be light, but for somebody else it may be light. So
Thank you.
let's continue.
So, we have issues in all sects of Judaism. Obviously, as you can see, the problem of opinions, throwing around our opinions, making sure that we make our voice heard, is not unique among any one of the cultures. But the reality of it is that the problem, the systemic problem, it exists everywhere. And not to forget, obviously there's negativity amongst all sects. It's not just Chabad, it's not just Netulei Karta. Obviously there's some Breslev movers, the people that instead of following Rabbi Nachman from Breslev or Rav Arush, that's in essence the current leader, they spend most of their time breakdancing on the street and not necessarily learning Torah. Then you have people that throw rocks on Shabbat against people that are not keeping Shabbat, thinking that they're doing a mitzvah. So, facing reality is what we need to do. If we don't face reality, we'll never fix it. I ran a multi-million-dollar company, and I know that we had problems at times, and we had great things at times. If I ignored the problems, we would have never succeeded. If someone has a small pain on his right side and he ignores it and it doesn't go away, he should take care of it. If he doesn't take care of it, he turns into something bigger. But by the time he decides to deal with it, it's so big that it becomes bigger than him. It can become a systemic problem. So we run out of the room after making our voices heard and wasting everybody's time without actually dealing with the problem and just calling the problem negative. Yeah, of course it's negative. If you want another shiur about etrogim, or another shiur about some alachot for sukkah, or you want some shiur about some neutral subject like a shlom bayit, you have plenty of other classes to go to. I'm here to give a reality check. I'm here to address the problem. The problem is that we're not facing the problem. That's the problem. The problem is that we're running away from the problem. We want to go to neutral classes that talk about positive mindsets. And if I think okay, it's going to be okay. If I think good, it'll be good. What about the fact that you drive on Shabbat and you desecrate Hashem's name on a regular basis? That doesn't matter? Just think good? If I think my marriage is going to be okay, it's going to be okay. What about the fact that you cheat on her every Tuesday with your girlfriend? That doesn't matter? We should ignore that? If I think, okay, I'm eventually going to lose weight. So the fact that you eat burgers every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that's not going to affect your weight? It's mysteriously going to disappear? We have to address problems. That's what the Torah is for. Torah is not to give us some unusual enlightenment that puts us in a different world where there's no problems there. The Torah is an instruction set of how to deal and manage problems, including the ones I mentioned today. And the reason why I started with such a negative subject is to get that type of attention, is to get somebody to become uncomfortable. Because the only way you're going to get yourself off the chair to deal with the problem is if you're uncomfortable. But if I gave you all sofas and beds, you all fall asleep. Because no one thinks it's a problem that there's people that think the Rebbe is God, or that the Christians believe that some idiot that died on a cross is God, and that 7 billion people think that somebody is God and not God, The fact that we're ignoring the problem is the problem. The fact that we want to hear nice things. No, I'm here to learn Shiur Torah. What kind of Torah do you learn? What kind of Torah do you learn? Let me tell you the Torah I learned. Yeshua ben Parchia, do you know who he was? He was Jesus' rabbi. That's who he was. Did anybody know that? Do you know why he said this Mishnah? Do you know why Yeshua ben Parchia actually said this specific Mishnah? The sixth Mishnah in the entire Mishnah. Sixth one, which means level of importance, level of closeness to Mount Sinai. Because of the issue that happened with Jesus. That's why he said it. This whole Mishnah is about what happened with Jesus. And we need to know what happened. Because number one, there's plenty of missionaries that are taking advantage of naive individuals that have no clue of what's right and what's left. And they're leaving pure Judaism and Torah and going to desecrating Hashem's name and going to Christianity and other types of idol worship. Or we have very nice people that have no clue what the truth is. Some priest told them, listen, come here, there's a guy that makes everybody healthy, but doesn't actually really work. You just have to keep them money every month. And maybe one day it's going to work. Well, just make sure you use the chemo, because that can help. And they make all these weird things, and they make people do weird things, and they fill up football fields full of people, 50, 100, 250,000 poor people, to give this one guy that's a very clever speaker an audience, and then a jet, a $50 or $60 million jet, because he's a good speaker. And he's speaking about idol worship. And the fact that we ignore it and we let them do it, when we are commanded by the Torah to be a light to the nations, is a poor job by us. But even if we ignore the goyim, even if we say, listen, let them deal with their own problems, we're not necessarily obligated to go convert everyone. Fine. There's some sages that you could rely on for that. Fine. What about the Jews? What about the Jews that are idol worshiping? What about the Jews that are worshiping their own rabbi and going against his own Torah? What about the ones that said that Rabbi Nachman from Breslev said go to his gravesite on Rosh Hashanah, but then they add, which he did say that, you should go, but they added something, under all costs. And that's where you see people completely leaving their marriage, creating shlom bayit problems, leaving their kids, leaving their wife. The only time of the year they actually have together is during this holiday time. The wife doesn't want them to go. The kids don't want them to go. It's finally they saw their dad the first time in the year. He works 900 hours a day. And no, he's not going to be with them. He's going to go in a gravesite with 30,000 other people. Now, if your wife agrees to it, and she's okay with it, and the whole house is cheerful about it, Chazaku Baruch, go to a gravesite, pray for me too. I need some prayers. But if your gravesite praying is going to create shlom bayit problems, then you have a mental issue. You're going against the Torah that Rabbi Nachman actually taught. He didn't tell you to create shlom bayit problems. Do you know what shlom bayit is? We learned it from this week's parasha. This week's parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha. God was willing to erase his own name for the sake of shlom bayit. Erase his own name. That's why in the whole issue of sotah, when there's a wayward woman that's suspected of cheating on her husband, Hashem says the cure to know whether she's cheating or not, because in those days there's no private investigators, you take my name, you write it on a scroll, you put it into the holy water, the same water that the Kohanim used to wash their hands and their feet before they would do the work of the Bet HaMikdash. You put it into that water where the ink would come out of the scroll, and then the woman would drink the water. If she cheated on her husband, she would blow up and die instantly. If she didn't, she would get the blessing of the Kohen HaGadol, which is the holiest man of the land. If she had trouble giving birth, she would be able to give birth. If she was giving birth to ugly kids, the kids would be beautiful. Different magical, mystical, amazing things directly from Hashem, but it's through a process that's in essence a sin. We are erasing Hashem's name. You're not allowed to erase Hashem's name. It's one of the commandments. You can't do it. You're not allowed to erase Hashem's name. Hashem says, no. You are allowed to erase my name, because by erasing my name for this manner only, you'll create shlom bayit. The husband is either going to know that his wife is righteous and he's wrong, or he's going to know that she cheated on him, and obviously he's not allowed to be with her anymore. And she gets punished for it. But for shlom bayit, you're allowed to erase a God's name. So do you think that Rabbi Nachman didn't know this? You think I know anything that he didn't know? You think Rabbi Nachman said, hey, listen, come to my grave and pray, and doesn't matter if it creates shlom bayit problems? What crazy person thinks that? Go ask Rabbi Arush, tzaddik that he is. Read his book. Ask Rabbi Lazer Brody, giant chacham, giant tzaddik, the protege of Rabbi Arush. Go ask him. Ask him what he thinks. Does he have shlom bayit problems when he goes to the grave? No, because his wife is on the same page as him. They go, they're excited, they go. But if you have shlom bayit problems because of it, if you're putting your whole life at risk for it, obviously you're not supposed to do it. So, the whole issue here is not the rabbis. The whole issue here is the students, not listening to the rabbis. And Rabbi Yoshua ben Pachia is telling us here, Aseh lecha rav, make yourself a teacher. Make yourself a rabbi. Meaning, you can't buy a rabbi. Like he said, K'nei lecha chaver, acquire yourself a friend. Because if you buy a rabbi, then he's no longer your rabbi. He's your employee. The Chida, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, said that the Torah declared bankruptcy the minute that rich people started giving money to rabbis, because they were no longer rabbis. As soon as rabbis started accepting huge sums of money from people, they were no longer able to rebuke them. Because if I rebuke you, knowing that you're going to give me $1 million each year to fund my Bet Knesset, to fund my this, to fund my that, I'm going to think twice before I do it. Wait a minute, if I tell him, listen, you're not allowed to drive on Shabbat, by the way, then he's going to say, okay, I'm not allowed to drive on Shabbat, okay, so I'm not allowed to give tzedakah either. Hey, by the way, your wife, can you please tell her to put some clothes on? Oh, okay, yeah, I'll tell her to put clothes on for somewhere else, for a different Bet Knesset. I'm not going to come anymore. The rabbi I want, the rabbi I'm going to give $1 million to, is the rabbi is going to do whatever I want. He's going to change the Torah for me. That's not a rabbi, my friend. That's not a rabbi. A rabbi is the one that tells you what's in the Torah. A rabbi doesn't care what your opinion is. A rabbi doesn't care how big your wallet is. A rabbi doesn't care if you get offended or not. He'll do things in a nice way. Maybe it'll have a little bit more class than I do. But nonetheless, a rabbi only has da'at Torah. Only has the opinion of Torah. He only cares about the truth. If it's truth, I'll say it. If it's not, I won't. The fact that it offends people to know that there's something wrong should be more offensive to anyone who realizes that that's the problem. Because if we actually start listening to our rabbis, we realize that none of these problems would actually happen. If the Turei Karta actually read the books, read the teachings, heard the teachings, read all of the work that their Rebbe actually learned throughout his life, they would never imagine to go against Am Yisrael. They would never imagine to go and shake hands with terrorists. If the ones that call themselves Chabad, that end up going and listening to the Torah that their holy Rebbe taught, they would never imagine to make him into a Mashiach, because they know it's impossible. Once you die, you can no longer be a Mashiach. That's it. I didn't make this rule. God did. You have a problem? Go to Him. Everything I'm telling you and everything I say in all of my classes is basic level Judaism. There's no chumrah. I don't teach any chumrot. I don't teach any stringencies. The fact that you're not allowed to drive to shul on Shabbat is not a stringency. It's basic level Judaism. The fact that you have to eat kosher all the time and not just sometimes, it's basic level Judaism, which includes meat and dairy and everything else, even if it's candy. Everything has to be kosher. If it's not kosher, there's a reason for it. Everything we teach is basic. The problem in today's world is that there's so many rabbis that unfortunately have a yetzer hara for money that it's hard for them to tell the truth. It's hard for them because they know, listen, if I tell these guys the truth, then they're not going to come to shul anymore, because if I tell them the truth, that if they drive on Shabbat, and they're desecrating Shabbat, and if they're desecrating Shabbat, then they're not part of Minyan, because they're not considered Jewish according to the Rambam, according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Zohar, according to the Gemara, according to every Jewish book there is that talks about Shabbat. You drive on Shabbat, you use your phone on Shabbat, you smoke on Shabbat, you're not considered Jewish. Your Judaism is on suspension. I didn't make the rule. Look at the books. 7 places in the Shulchan Aruch, all over the Zohar, all over the Gemara, in the written Torah, the oral Torah, anywhere you want. Just read the book. I read it, I saw it. I'm telling you it. Why did your rabbi say to you? I don't know. Is he a rabbi? Just because he has a title rabbi doesn't mean he's a rabbi. Because Yeshua Bar Chia here is saying, Aseh l'charav, you have to make yourself a rabbi. But the rabbi that he's referring to is the one that tells you the truth all the time. Even if it's disturbing. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it makes you change. Even if it makes you get out of the chair and walk out of a class in the middle. It doesn't matter. Because if it's true, then it's true all the time. But if the Torah has 1% lies, then it's 100% lie with some truth in it. But then you can't decipher what's truth and what's not. It's either 100% truth and divine, or 100% lie. You have to decide. If you believe the Torah is 100% divine, then you have to follow all of it. No exceptions. Even if you can't follow certain things, know that you're not allowed to do what you're doing, but eventually you'll try. Listen, when I first started doing tshuva, I knew you're supposed to keep Shabbat, I just wasn't ready. I knew you're supposed to do a lot of things. I wasn't ready. I still knew that I was supposed to do it. So don't say that just because you're not doing it, it's wrong. No, this part is not true, just the stuff that I'm doing is right. It's nonsense. That means that Moshe Rabbeinu went to Gan Eden for the wrong reason. Avraham Avinu went to Gan Eden for the wrong reason. All the rabbis that write these books, called the Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, Me'am Loez, they were fooled to do all these extra mitzvot. You got away with just one mitzvah. You're a tzaddik and they're all rashaim. Well, what's happening? What's that? But they all made a mistake? So obviously we have to understand, what does it mean to make yourself a rabbi? A young man came once to the Slonimir Rebbe, the Bet Avraham. And he says to him, I learned almost all of the books of the Hasidic greats. I followed their advice. I tried to incorporate into my lifestyle all, he wasn't even exaggerating here, all of the good practices they speak of. I see no reason to have a Rebbe. Just I learned all the books. Rashi says if you want to get friends, buy books. Rashi. You can't read Torah without Rashi. One of the most important commentators that ever existed. Says, you want to buy friends? Get yourself books. So this guy did it. Says, I bought myself all these books, all these tzaddikim. I'm reading the books. What do I need a rabbi for? Sounds logical. And the Rebbe responds to him, let me explain your situation in a parable. Once a man fell ill, and rather than visiting a doctor, he decided to go to a pharmacy on his own. He said, I'll buy all the medicines and I'll take them, and that way I'll be cured of all diseases. There's no need to see a doctor. Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that's not exactly a good solution, because most likely after the 3rd or 4th medicine, you most likely die. Because some medicines are countering a different medicine. If you take inappropriate amount or inappropriate medicine in general, you can kill yourself. He says the books are the medicine. The Rebbe is a doctor. I'll tell you exactly what to take and how to take it. If you're not ready, certain things in the book are not going to be relevant to you, and if you do them, you'll hurt yourself. Sometimes somebody wants to read a book, and say, hey, listen, well, I just started Judaism, I went to a couple of classes, I saw a couple of people walked out. Sounds interesting, let me read some Torah. He mentioned a few names. What name did he mention? Oh, he mentioned some guy named Rambam. Okay, so you go online, go on Amazon.com, and you type in Rambam, and you see a few different books, and you pick one that says, Guide of the Perplexed. It's like, oh, that's the one that I want to read as my first book in Judaism. There's a very high likelihood that after you read the book, you'll become against God, not for God. Even though Rambam is holy. But if you don't have any concept of basic level Judaism, you're not even allowed to look at that book. As a matter of fact, if you don't have high level studies of Judaism, you shouldn't look at the book. Because even the sages of his time didn't understand his book. When they first read it, they started burning it. They thought he was going against God. Thought he was using too much information from the Goyim, like Aristotle. Thought it was something out of this world. Too much. So you can't just pick and choose, oh no, this one says Jewish, I'll buy it. Or sometimes what happens, I had a student one time tell me, hey listen, I just got this book, what do you think of it? And I look at the book, looks Jewish, says Jewish stuff on it. But then I look at the publishing house, and I'm not really familiar with the publishing house. And usually, Orthodox Jewish books, authentic books, it's not that many publishing houses. We're not like the English books where we have 500 publishing houses. So, we have a few that are familiar. And I'm not familiar with this one, so I look at the book, I see some guy's name, I don't know who the guy is, not that that means much, so I look him up. I see, oh, this guy, so-and-so, is head of Reform Synagogue in, I think California or something like that. I'm like, yeah, if you want to be a kofel, read the book, enjoy. If you want to believe that you're allowed to give bar mitzvahs to dogs, enjoy the book. So, you can't just buy books. You have to know what to buy, first of all. Second of all, you need to know what to buy at your level. You have to learn ABC. You can't just go and, first day of school, you're learning calculus math, getting ready for rocket science. First, you have to learn basic level algebra, basic level language. Then you'll get to the C++, C++, and all the other good stuff that's on programming. You can't just jump to everything. That's what a rabbi is supposed to tell you. He's supposed to guide you. But he's only going to be able to do that if you make him your rabbi, not if you pay him to be. If you pay him, listen, we have a condition. I give you money, you let me do whatever I want. That's not a rabbi. That's an employee. If your rabbi is not telling you to keep Shabbat, if your rabbi is not telling you to keep family purity, if your rabbi is not telling you about modesty, if your rabbi is not telling you about relevant, basic level halachot that are relevant to the foundation of Judaism, sorry, he's not your rabbi. You could call him your rabbi all you want. Plenty of people have titles. It means nothing. You want a rabbi? You listen to the original rabbis. They're telling you have to make one. But the way to make one, according to Chazal, you have to make one by finding one that's going to tell you the truth at all times, without a care in the world about whether you like it or not. There's obviously different styles of how to say, what to say, but nonetheless, there's only a single truth.
I've heard enough. New arrival screams, echoing through the hallway to know that this ain't good. Once they pass them through the infierno, they don't come back. It's enough to make you go crazy.
do not think we fear you, Spirit. We know your power is born of evil. This is your last night in the land of the living. You understand me, malevolent demon?
There was a rich family that lived here called the Hetheringtons, and unfortunately, their daughter passed away of a heart attack inside the house. Basically, they were so devastated that they reached out to people claiming to be psychic mediums. They actually weren't psychic mediums. They opened up a total of 11 portals inside this house and invited spirits and entities from all different kinds of dimensions.
Well, I think there are certain pieces of evidence that there is an afterlife.
Resurrection of the dead is affirmed pretty clearly in the Talmud and the Midrash.
To be honest with you, to give this lecture is a nightmare. If it was up to me, I wouldn't. There's going to be some graphic details.
This place is a maze.
The person after death went to a place called Sheol.
This is by far the largest near-death experience study that has ever been conducted.
People go to a place and they experience weird things. And sometimes they actually will see a character of some type. Well, where did that come from?
I don't know why that one chain is swinging back there.
They may describe feeling profoundly peaceful, seeing a bright, warm, welcoming light. Some people describe watching doctors and nurses working on them with incredible accuracy.
Next thing I knew, I was above my body watching the operation.
How long did you feel like you were gone?
I went to a place of timelessness. And so what that means, it could have been a second, could have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
Can you imagine waking up from your sleep and not being able to move?
As I'm lying there, I realized that there's an evil presence next to me.
Do you believe that angels, demons exist?
Holy shit, dude, get out of here! Oh my god, dude!
Strange things keep happening. Bizarre nightmares, as if I'm on fire in the woods.
Whoa, what the hell is this? Man, I've got bad chest pain.
Satan's Hollow is what it's called, the portal to hell.
Some people calling it an eye of fire, while others said it looked like the portal to hell opening up.
And the next thing I know, I was outside of my body, looking at my body.
What I'm
do. It's called claromancy, the art of throwing lots or throwing bones.
2,000 years of experience, passed down, recorded, of how demons work.
God has them all on a leash, and he lets the leash go enough to let them tempt us, because that's what makes us spiritually stronger.
I'm trying to be as graphic as possible so you understand what we're talking about.
It's your ticket to reality. It's your ticket to freedom. It's your ticket to immortality.
Is there an afterlife? Is there a
It's
God?
the type of information that can keep you away from the Yetzirah.
What happens to us after we die?